Welcome, everybody. My name is Todd Keirstead, and you are watching TK Talk, stories of inspiration both on and off the golf course. Today, I have a special guest. His name is Rich O'Brien. Rich is kind of a father of adaptive golf in the world. He's down in the Charleston area. Rich, how are you doing today?
Doing very well, Todd. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
So you grew up in Syracuse, New York, and then you started playing golf at an early age. Then had a little bit of a career down in the Florida area. Why don't you talk about how you got into golf and how it progressed?
Well, I started off, I was introduced to golf by my Uncle Howie, who lived down in Pittsburgh. And I was about 12 years old at the time. And he put a golf club in my hand, took me golfing, gave me a few tips to starting out. I was lucky that we had an acre and a half backyard that I could hit up in Syracuse. So the backyard, I was out there. I was hooked on the game. Within 2 years, I was shooting right around even par. Within 3 years or so, I was about a scratch on that side. So that was good along those lines. And I found every winter time, however, up in Syracuse, I was kind of allergic to cold weather, I guess. And would get a little depressed in the wintertime waiting for the snow to melt. And so I went down to the University of Miami, played on the team down there. It was a walk-on to the team. I got an academic scholarship, studied sports psychology, and wound up being an assistant coach for the University of Miami as well, and an academic coordinator there. Then I became the head coach at Barry University and had the good fortune of building that team there that's since become basically the best team in Division II right now. And I was able to put the foundation in there. But also was able to work with some touring professionals and some others along those lines, working on the short game and working alongside John Casano, who was the coach at FIU, was coaching some of them as well. It was a very, very cool experience along those lines. And then decided to come up to the Charleston area about 22 years ago, I guess now, and was running some golf courses. So that's the first segment of the story there. So I think I answered the first part of your story. What's the next question?
Then September 25th, 2008, things kind of went sideways on you. You had an injury. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that injury?
Well, it was a very interesting day. It was raining on that particular day. It was the member guest day down at Kiowa Island Club, and there's not a lot of not a lot of hills in the Low Country, as the name would state. But this is the second highest point in Charleston. It's called Mount Watson at Cacique Golf Course, and it's got a double switchback hill on the cart path. And as the golf cart turned hard left, I went flying hard right, and wound up crashing into the curb, apparently through my shoulder, my right shoulder underneath there, and fractured the shoulder right in half as my head and neck snapped around. I broke my neck and broke my back. Had 4 skull fractures as well as the curb hit the base of my skull again. Wound up having multiple strokes, multiple aneurysms at that point, and my whole right shoulder as the base of the impact was totally destroyed from a standpoint where the collarbone was cracked in half, my labrum was stripped, and my rotator cuffs were messed up, and couldn't really use my arm for a whole year at that point. They had to replace the collarbone with rods at that point as well. So that was a horrific experience. It developed addiction to pain meds and post-traumatic stress as a result of that. Chronic pain, chronic inflammation, chronic fatigue, chronic sleep disorder, 14 broken bones that took a year to heal. Took a lot of effort just to be able to not succumb to that, and that was a element that way. And that's I imagine you have a few more questions at that point as well.
Well, so you talked about the physical injuries. How did you get over? You had a really unique way of getting over the psychological injuries, the head injuries, as well as the addiction to the painkillers. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I had a few things that I had to do every single day. I would meditate every single day, and I would visualize, my best shots, my best rounds, and my best friends in the golf courses. And I called it trading nightmares and flashbacks for golf dreams, and new friendships at that point as well. And that was really powerful, where I would visualize for 20 minutes each evening before I went to bed on there, and I would try and mitigate and reduce the number of nightmares and flashbacks I had, because with post-traumatic stress, nightmares and flashbacks are terrible. You never get to sleep at all on there. You never get into the delta wave sleep and work on there, and that was important that way. I also did a lot of exercise to try and tire myself out as well, and I would rebuild my strength and my muscle mass, because I lost 32 pounds in my coma. I lost every ounce of muscle mass in my lower body as well. So it was very important to do that exercise. And exercise is also a great way to mitigate some pain through endorphins as well. And each morning, what I would do after I was done with my exercise is I'd meditate then as well, and visualize healing my brain with that side. So there was a lot of that, a lot of combination of exercise and meditation starting out. I did as much as I could from other sides of it, with nutrition and supplements on there as well. Eventually, I found acupuncture after 3.5 years. My kidneys were just about ready to go. My sister-in-law, who's a doctor, said, you have to go to acupuncture, otherwise you're going to be dead in 6 months. And that kind of got my attention at that point, as you can imagine. And it wound up, the acupuncture was extraordinary for me, from a standpoint where it helped with my PTSD. It helped reduce my pain level. Then she's tried something called scalp acupuncture. And she put more needles into the scalp, and she basically rebooted my central nervous system. And lo and behold, in a few treatments, all of a sudden my chronic pain, it was like it was a bus breaker that was wide open, got shut off. And the pain was basically gone. And I was absolutely, what's going on here? I didn't know what to think at that point there. And then it took me 5 more months before I was able to finally kick my addiction to pain meds too. So, that's the arc of our story there. As I tell my story, the first year was a year in hell. The second year is trying to get back to playing golf competitively from a standpoint of having PTSD and not being able to see straight from the pain meds, and every swing potentially becoming attraction. And then the third one is trading a bad addiction, an unhealthy addiction, for a positive addiction that I called golf therapy. And I like to share that passion and that addiction now with our veterans and other in our community.
So how did you get into that? So you started sharing it. How did that program first start off? First of all, what did it feel like hitting that golf ball again for the first time after going through such an incredible injury?
Well, I had mitigated that a little bit by doing the visualization, degree in sports psychology, and visualizing it every single day, and the best shots and working through that first time. It was 1 year to the day after my accident. It was at, right about the exact moment of my death, the year before, that I was able to start hitting golf balls. We actually finished that first 9-hole round at the exact moment of my death. And that was, it was like, okay, I somehow, after a year of not being able to swing a club, after a year of not being able to lift my arm higher than my chest, right about mid-chest, finally, the arm, they did a right shoulder manipulation under anesthesia, and they broke up all the scar tissue that was in there. And a few days later, I could swing a golf club, and it felt amazing to do that. Somehow I shot 37, 2 over par for 9 holes the first time I played, and I was swinging about 50%. I apparently made every putt I looked at that day, is what my pastor who was playing with me said. I was like, okay, I was unconscious that way. So it was the most inspirational round I had played up to that point. And I've had a few ones since then that have been interesting as well. So, but, when I started to recover, as your question asked on there, um, there was a veteran here in Charleston. His name's Fred Gutierrez, who goes to our church. And he saw me recovering. And he said, "Do you think you could teach me how to play golf?" And Fred is paralyzed the entire left side of his body. He had a gunshot wound to the right side of his head. Every top of his head, the bottom of his foot is paralyzed. So it was an absolutely amazing thing. And he wanted to learn how to play. I said, "Okay, I'll help you any way I can." And that was about almost 7.5 years ago at this point here. And little did I know that it would keep bleeding. But what we found is, after overcoming my addiction, he asked me for help like the next week. And I became a mentor. So like a lot of these 21-step programs or 12-step programs, being a mentor is the next step in your own recovery. And I think it was very much the case for ours. And what I was able to teach him was what I learned, and we found out it was valuable to many. And then more and more veterans started asking for help. And after our book, Half Paralyzed, Twice Strong, made it to the Golf Channel on there, and Al Tage did a piece on the partially paralyzed golfer there. He told our story. The PGA saw our story, and they asked us to champion a program here in Charleston. And we started off with a handful, and now we've got, shall we say, a handful now of over 300 veterans involved in our program. So we are the model program. We've created a lot of good things here, and we keep growing just to help as many veterans as we can.
That's amazing. So now you're also involved with the PGA Hope. Tell me about that.
Oh, now PGA Hope stands for Helping Our Patriots Everywhere here in the United States. That's the PGA's flagship military program. And when we first started back in 2015, we had 5 veterans in the program, including Fred as one as well. And we asked 100 veterans to participate, and we got 5 to participate. They all said the same thing. All 100 we asked, he said, "Love the program, great idea, we'd love to do it, but we don't want to take the spot of a veteran that needs it more." And they all said that. And it was like, but we had to have that first class in order to build it from there. Had to grow it. So that first class we had one veteran that had bipolar manic depression and shut himself in for 7 years by shutting the world out. And through the game of golf and through PGA Hope, we were able to reach him, and he came out and he started to living life again. And that was a great thing. I told that story. The vet center here, the PTSD clinic here in Charleston, saw our story. And as a result of that, they started referring more and more veterans to the program. And then the veterans started talking themselves to each other. And talk about the best referral you can get is a veteran saying, "This program worked for me, you need to try it." And then the vet center as well. So what we wound up having is, I don't think the PGA understood before the benefit of golf therapy for veterans, especially with post-traumatic stress. And with 22 veterans every day in the United States committing suicide, that was one of our key focuses. And I have PTSD. Fred has PTSD as well. Perry Green, our other co-founder, his son has PTSD. So that was always one of our concerns and working there. My father was a Army Air Corps veteran from World War II. My grandfather was a Navy veteran. They were both disabled. It was my opportunity to help them that way. Perry's opportunity to help his son, and Fred, as a veteran himself, he could help other veterans. So that was a great heart thing from that side. But we've been able to help hundreds of veterans so far trade nightmares and flashbacks for golf dreams and new friendships. And golf therapy is kind of catching some momentum down here now.
No, it really is. It's not only catching momentum in the Charleston area, but it's now, I'm on your social media, and it's all across the country, let alone all across the world too. You're making some huge differences in people's lives. It's incredible what you're doing down there.
Well, thank you. And right now there's over 90 chapters of PGA Hope nationwide. And many of them started by a call to either Perry Green or myself. as well. They saw it on the golf therapy page or the Grow the Game page. And, you know, when we started that page, it was to create awareness of adaptive golf to be the next great growth segment in the game of golf. And I think we were ahead of the curve there a little bit, don't you think? So that's good. Great to see the PGA members getting involved in adaptive golf and helping their communities like we have. And hopefully that'll keep growing and growing, and more veterans will get help.
Well, Rich, it's an absolute pleasure having you on. Again, this is what TK Talks is all about, sharing stories of inspiration both on and off the golf course. I know you're dealing with it and helping people out every single day. And to have you on, I know when people see this, they're going to be going to your page if they're not already on, but you're showing people how it's happening. And it is amazing. So, Rich, it's an absolute pleasure. And I do look forward to continuing working with you in the very near future.
Yeah, Todd, and thank you. You know, a couple of years ago, you came down here to Charleston as well, and what you're doing up there in Canada, I applaud you as well. It's just you're doing what we're doing up there, and leading the way for Canadian professionals and Canada. So thank you for your involvement that way, and you know, by telling these stories, like I write my golf therapy stories. Now we're got to do some video wise, and that's good, but. You, me, and Tony Bennett, I think we're peas in a pod.
We're having some fun, and that's what it's all. You know what? This game is such an incredible game. It's such a therapeutic game. I'm seeing it up here. I'm seeing it with the Invictus games. I'm seeing it with individuals that I'm working with on a daily basis. You're immersed in it. This is what you do. This is who you are. And it's incredible just getting somebody and providing the opportunity for them just to hit another golf ball again where they never thought they could, or utilize the game of golf as that form of rehabilitation.